Alright, so what I wanted to do today was talk about Zeno in Resident Evil Requiem. Um, Zeno being obviously Wesker, kind of, but not really. And it's funny because I made a video just before launch about the series needing a new kind of long-term villain, right? And I did mention Wesker. I was like, maybe they'll kind of retcon his death in 5, maybe they'll bring him back in somewhere or another through 9. And I was kind of right, but also with long term, I was kind of wrong. Now, Zeno is an interesting character because I've been thinking about it more and more as the time has gone on. And I'm always thinking, I'm like, it kind of feels like he's there just to kind of be included in like this big celebratory anniversary game, because the plot would kind of just carry on almost the same without him there. Like, you've got Gideon. Victor Gideon is the main villain of the game, 100%. And if he was the one taking Grace to Raccoon City and explaining everything up until the end of the game, the same thing would have happened. Like, it all would have happened the same way, and Zeno wouldn't have needed to be there. So I genuinely think he was added in to be this kind of, you know, again, like a big reference or a big kind of callback to the whole franchise. Now, he's not a bad character. He does have a purpose in terms of fleshing out the overarching story now of the connections. And I'm not going to talk about the connections in this video, because what was simply just a black market weapons dealer through 7 and 8's lore has now just evolved into something really crazy. And I'm not 100% sure on how I feel about it yet. I'm kind of putting it all together for a video. And it's interesting, it's definitely setting up something huge, but the way they're kind of incorporating the whole group into being this overarching big bad is interesting. But anyway, Zeno. So, Zeno is a clone of Wesker, and I've always been kind of on the fence with cloning characters for the sake of like bringing them back, and cloning characters in general. I feel like it's kind of not something I'm a big fan of as a whole. Now, throughout the whole run of the game, well, probably from like 50% of the game upwards, there's this whole story beat suggesting that Grace is indeed a clone as well. And obviously by the end of the game, it turns out that's not the case. People seem to be confused on that still, and I just want to kind of say that she's not a clone. If you kind of pay attention to what they're telling you in the story, she's definitely not a clone. But it's more the fact that somewhere along the line, some information being kind of fed to the connections was incorrect. So, you know, they've kind of been chasing a loose end, basically. But I will cover that more in a different video. But yeah, Zeno is a clone of Wesker, and it just felt a bit underused, I'd say. I was kind of expecting a fight with him, you know, like a boss fight with him, kind of in the same vein as like Resident Evil 5, you know, when he's like, is still like zipping around all over the place, but you have to kind of use the environment to kind of deal with him. That would have been cool, obviously, but it didn't happen. I think another thing with Zeno as well, and this is again going kind of back to Resident Evil 5, if you have Zeno Wesker, well, I'm gonna call him Zeno Wesker, even though it's not actually called Zeno Wesker, he's just called Zeno, but if you have Zeno, and he's this big presence in your game, which is not really there that much, but you have Zeno, who is Wesker, and then you have a character, your mainline character, that's been in the games for, you know, a long time. They've never met before, so it's not like there's this big kind of holy shit, they've met for like the 100th time and there's big conflict and stuff. It's the wrong character to bring him in with, I think. If, and this is a big if Resident Evil Requiem was a Chris game or a Joel game and Zeno was there, it'd feel more impactful, because they're characters that have deeper ties to Albert Wesker. So seeing a clone of him doing all this crazy shit he used to do would be more impactful for those characters rather than Leon, who hasn't really ever dealt with him before, which is kind of where I think the character falls a bit flat, because there's no big connection between Zeno and Leon at all in this game. At no point do Leon or Sherry even mention the fact that he reminds them of Wesker, because they are characters that just haven't ever dealt with Wesker before. So it feels kind of like it's been shoehorned in to kind of hit that nostalgia like ding. And yeah, there's people out there that are actively saying, you know, half of this game is nostalgia bait and it's not really kind of coherent or any kind of logical sense to the story, it's just there to be there. Which is fine, you can think that, but it's just fun to see it, you know, like going to the RPD. Is it brief? Yes. Is it important? Not really, but it's there, you know, it's a location you can go back to and see again. You know, there, like I said in the video before, there's references to almost every mainline game in this game, somewhere or another. Whether it's small, whether it's big, they are there, and it's cool to see, it's fun. So, people who are just saying it's nostalgia bait, just enjoy it, like, just enjoy it. I'm sure there's something in there that anyone, and I mean everyone, maybe, has seen in the game and goes, whoa, that's really cool, that's like a reference to this game I really like. And it's not even just mainlines, like there's other games mentioned here too. So somewhere along the line, I'm sure someone has seen something or read something in this game and gone, wow, that's cool, that's from that game I really like. Like, that's the whole point. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, with Zeno, it just didn't hit the mark, I think, as this big, impactful character. It's cool that it fleshed out the connections. It's really interesting that the connections are making a clone of Wesker, and based on the end credit scene, it seems like maybe that's not the last we've seen of Zeno in some way or another. So maybe a character that has more importance to Wesker will meet a clone of Wesker in some way or another. Obviously that's going off the indication that the end credit scene is in fact the connections, like soldiers recovering his head, which people are assuming that is what's going on. So they could be setting him up for a return later on, and hopefully, again, like I said, a character that has bigger ties to him. So, you know, Jill, Chris, or even Jake, to a degree, would be pretty cool to see them meet him, rather than someone who has like no connection whatsoever. Looking back at it now, like I said with Victor, like he could have carried the entire game. Like, he's a good villain. Again, it's a one-shot villain, which is a shame, because they do need to set up something big, and I think they are doing that with the connections now. Like I said, they've kind of gone from this big, shady black market dealer group to like this massive overarching story point, which is gonna divide a lot of people, I know that, and I will make a video covering all of that soon. But I think they are setting up that group to be like the next big bad. So we'll see how that goes, we'll see the reactions to that as time progresses. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about with Zeno. To kind of sum up, cool idea, cool to see, but maybe the execution and the timing of his appearance wasn't the best for this game. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments, let me know what you think of Zeno. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more Resident Evil content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.